Well, hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to our study of Proverbs, where we're actually contrasting and comparing the wise and the fool, which is done a lot in the book of Proverbs. That's why there's so much overlap, as there will be some repetition here too. What I want to focus on in this video is everything that's visible. In other words, how can you recognize the fool and the wise? It'll be very clear. There's also the repercussion or results, consequences, rewards that come to the wise and the fool. So we begin by just recognizing what they look like. What's so different about them? A prudent man conceals knowledge, but the heart of a fool proclaims folly. The first thing to notice is their speech. Now, we know this is poetry. So when he says that the prudent man, which is the same thing as the wise man, is the knowledgeable man, he conceals knowledge, not hides it and keeps it for himself, but more of a knows when to use it. We've seen that in the book of Proverbs and even in the Bible. This notion, it's not just about having knowledge, it's knowing how to use it, when to use it, which words to use. That's the prudent man. Compared to the fool, the heart of the fool, we'll take note of that, he proclaims folly. What comes out of him is foolishness. And he doesn't conceal it, he just speaks it. Everything coming out of his mouth just demonstrates what's going on inside of him or her. So that's the first way to recognize them, what they say. And we keep seeing that as we look at the next one. The lips of the wise spread knowledge, not so the hearts of fool. See, this is where we see that the wise person, the person of prudence, he will spread the knowledge, but he'll just do it at the right time, in the right way, with the right words. But this can't happen with the heart of a fool, because all he can speak is foolishness, folly, that he loves to babble off about. So we see that it is about what they say. Why? Why can the wise speak such wisdom? Is it just natural? Well, let's look at this. See, wisdom rests in the heart of a man of understanding, but it makes itself known even in the midst of fools. See, it does come from them. The same way we had the hearts of fool, we do have the heart of the wise, which is filled with knowledge, therefore it will be heard. That's what's going to be proclaimed. That's what is going to spread out because it comes from the heart. It is such a knowledge that it's going to be recognized even amongst the fools. Even they can see this is biblical truth. This is wisdom. And if they don't like it and they reject it, they still recognize it. It's kind of the idea here. Because again, this is what comes from them. But is it a natural thing? You probably know the answer to that if you know your Bible. The answer is no. And that's why he adds, the wise of heart will receive commandment, but a babbling fool will come to ruin. Yeah, you see, the wisdom that's in the heart of this prudent person that speaks wisdom because he received it first, received the instruction. We've seen that before, multiple times. The wise person is one who's receptive to teaching, to corrections even, if necessary. Compared to the fool, where again, he can't help it, right? He's babbling. He proclaims it. He can't keep it inside. And this will bring ruin. Interesting little contrast, right? Well, what the wise is going to get is wisdom. That's his recompense. We'll come back to that. The same way the fool, what he's going to get is ruin instead. We'll also come back to that. So it's in our pocket. Because we see another proverb that's very similar and says, the wise lay up knowledge, but the mouth of a fool brings ruin near. See, very similar in idea. The wise is the one who's receiving or laying up knowledge. He's accumulating truth. And also how to use it, when to use it, what words to use, as we've seen before. Compared to the fool, the babbling fool, From his mouth, all that will bring is ruin for himself. And there's a little contrast going on here, where the laying up takes time, right? Think of a slow build. You don't understand God's truth within a week or month or even a year of being a Christian. It takes many decades to study and understand who God is and how he thinks according to Scripture. But then you get the ruin that is near. These pieces of something that's quick. It's about to happen. So on one side, it takes time, it builds up. But on the other, the fool, he's going to have it. He's going to get it pretty quickly. Continue on that note. That note of getting the reward or repercussions, the consequences of it all. We want to look at another proverb that tells us that the simple, he inherits folly, but the prudent are crowned with knowledge. Remind yourself that the simple is the person who's in the fork on the road. He's listening to two voices, the Lady Folly and Lady Wisdom, and he's going to choose between the two. Now, the fact that he talks about inheriting folly is something that you get without doing anything, right? Somebody dies, you get something. Does seem to speak of this simple person kind of giving himself over to his own simpleness. All where you're going to end up is in folly. That's what you're going to inherit. And we'll see a bit later why I'm saying that this is just a person giving themselves over to their own simpleness. You'll end up with folly. You'll see why. Because we've seen it before, for the prudent, the wise person, what he's going to get is knowledge. Because he seeks it, because he wants it. He wants to make it part of his life. Now, there's even greater rewards for the wise and the fool. Because we read that the crown of the wise is their wealth, but the folly of fools brings folly. Just as we saw the wise person gets more wisdom, we're also seeing how the fool, giving himself over to the folly, will just get more folly. The same way he'll get ruined, he's also going to just get more foolishness. He thinks and he speaks foolishness, he'll just get more foolishness. Everything that's against God. But now we see that the wise can get stuff. Is it all about the wealth? No. See, you can't read Proverbs and think this is a way to make money. That's not the point. We're going to see mighty quickly. That's not the point. But it is about saying when you live in a way that God honors, that God calls us to do, there is reward in that. But like I said, it's not about you'll get stuff if you obey. Because the next one kind of helps us understand when it says, precious treasure and oil are in a wise man's dwelling, but a foolish man devours it. Again, we're seeing how the fool is compared and contrasted with the wise. And we see that the fool, his problem is he's going to devour his stuff. That's why he doesn't have it. Right? Let's eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. Or like we see throughout history, when people had too much money, they wasted it and destroyed themselves. Think of the pirates. No matter what they say in the movies and stuff, pirates didn't actually hide their booty somewhere, put treasures in holes. They used it. They had stuff, they drank it right then and there because they did not know if they were going to live any longer. That's the thing for the cowboys back in the far west, where they would do a big job, get a lot of money, and just drink it and use it up right then and there. That's what the fool does. So if that's the reality of the fool, therefore we understand that the precious treasure and the oil given to that wise man is because he's wise in the way he uses it compared to the fool who devours it. So that's what we see where the wealth is given to the wise person. We see it's given to them, not just as in God blessing you from heaven, but as in they are wise in how they use what they have. They're wise in putting it away or not devouring it all at once. So it's the wisdom that gives them greater surplus in a way. And, of course, God's blessing. So we're seeing the reward here. We're seeing when recognize what they get. And we've seen that we can recognize them by what they say. But see, all of this happens because also the way they live according to that knowledge they want to get. Yeah, this is what I want to get to. Every prudent man acts with knowledge, but a fool flaunts his folly. This isn't about the words anymore. This is about the way they live. So, yet, like I said, they get the wealth, they get the preciousness, the stuff, because they live in a way that they can have it. They live in a way that's according to God's will. His revelation, His truth, knowledge. See, they act in that way. They live in that way. And the fool, the way he lives, not just what he says, how he lives, speaks of his own foolishness, his own foolish heart. Yeah, we see that also in the next proverb. Whoever trusts in his own mind is a fool. But he who walks in wisdom will be delivered. See, you're walking in a way that is approved and demanded of God, so you won't destroy your stuff. You'll be delivered from everything that could hurt you, including yourself. But then you get the fool. So you get this idea of trusting in your heart, which is foolishness. Why? Because the heart is deceitful above all else. Who can know it? Because our hearts are evil and against God and His will. See, that's why when I come back to the simple who, when given over to his natural inclination, will end up inheriting folly because his heart will lead him in foolishness. Because our heart are broken, infected by sin, leading against God's knowledge and truth. So it'll go naturally down that way. That's what they'll get. This brings us to even more consequences or repercussions for the fool and the wise. As we learn that on the lips of him who has understanding, wisdom is found. But a rod is for the back of him who lacks sense. Where again, we're seeing the biggest gift for the wise is not the wealth, it's not the stuff, it's having wisdom. It's knowing God's will and living according to it. That's your greatest gift. I hope you know that. But for the fool, who we saw that he will be ruined mighty quickly, and he will publish his foolishness before everybody, what he will get in a very concrete way is the rod for his back, or her back. That's what the person who lacks sense, another way of speaking of a fool, of one given over to their own foolish heart. You'll get that kind of consequences. Continuing on this path of severe consequences, we read also, the prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer forth. So again, this person who's prudent, who's wise, who has accumulated knowledge and lives according to it, he will see the danger. And he'll be delivered from it because he'll know to hide from it, to turn away from it, from these my own. From these snares of death, as we already seen before. And that compared again to the simple. Again, we see that the simple is the one who goes on. The simple who continues down the path of his own heart, which is foolish, which will give you foolishness. When he goes on that way, all he's going to do is suffer. He'll suffer ruin. He'll suffer the rod, because he's going down the path that's destructive. Ultimately, you will ruin everything around you. It's kind of the point. Like the last of our Proverbs will tell us. Scoffers set a city aflame, but the wise turn away wrath. The scoffer is the mocker. He's also the one that mocks God's law. He is also part of the fool category. Now, when he talks about setting a city aflame, it's again figurative, poetic language. Because we see it compared to the wise that turns away the wrath, the burning, fiery wrath. So the wise, again, who knows to say the right thing in the right way, can calm down the fighting and the anger before it explodes, compared to the scoffer, the fool, who proclaims his folly, who's babbling folly, who's going to start a fight everywhere and he doesn't care. He's going to end up burning everything down, ruining everything around him, creating great harm, and getting many hits in the process. So what have you learned from these comparison and contrast? Well, we've seen that the foolish heart, I should say the normal human heart is a foolish heart. When given over to everything that is wrong and evil, naturally inclined towards it. And it can be seen and heard by the way they live and what they say. And so all they'll get is consequences. It's rods and ruins and burning everything down. And don't think we're exempt because we're believers. See, that's why Paul says that we need to put to death the deeds of the flesh, which is the evil heart that we used to have that's still infecting us and affecting us. That's why you have to put it to death. See, there is a natural inclination towards evil still in us, even if not strong, which is why we have to fight against it and turn towards that wisdom that wants to receive it, wants to lay it up, wants to know more of God's great revealed truth. You can't live in a way that's according to God's will if you don't know God's will and it's in His book. That's why we need to know sound doctrine and solid theology. And it's not the head knowledge only, because again, it will teach you how to say it, when to say it, how to live in a wise way. It's not just information. And we need to get it, to live by it, to succeed through it. So again, it's an active effort where even as believers, you can either be actively chasing the wisdom or the foolishness. May this speak to us. Brothers and sisters, be blessed.